Welcome to Positive Talk Radio. Our goal is simple: to explore evolving ideas one conversation at a time. So, stay with us as right now we present. We've got a great guest for you today. He's done all kinds of things. He does all kinds of things. He can help you with your business. He can help you with your back. He can help you with a bunch of different things that will make your life just a little bit better, because that's what he is interested in doing. He's a pediatric chiropractor and a 3-time author, a podcaster who's got 460 something episodes. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, very, very nicely done. And he's also a speaker, and he conducts classes and all kinds of stuff. Vic, welcome to the show. How are you? Dr. Vic, actually.
No, thanks for having me, Kevin. It's a pleasure to be on.
Good. Now, would you prefer Dr. Vic, Dr. Manzo? What would you like?
Vic is perfectly fine. It doesn't matter to me.
Okay. Very, very nice. And we got together because I want to know more about what it is that you do and how to help people live their lives a little bit better, either in getting into business and working their business, or just learning how to talk to themselves to live a little bit better, if that makes any sense at all to you.
No, it makes perfect sense.
So how did you get started going down this road? I know you went to chiropractic school at one point.
Yeah, it's an interesting road for me because I've always been intrigued by life in its sense. I got into sports, and I wanted to know why some people were good and some were great. What made that difference? I come from Chicago. I was a big fan of Michael Jordan, watching him play and growing up. And I mean, just what the level of what he played. And it's like, why wasn't everyone like that? Or why this and that? And then when I was going into chiropractic school, this is where I started to get inquisitive about the mind, life, and go into that deeper element. And it wasn't until I started applying these things in my life and all the challenges that I faced in business. And when they were starting to show up, it was more of, well, why was that showing up for me? And why is someone here who just does, not even close? And I'm not, it just sounds very arrogant, but like, from the caliber and level of what I challenge myself and all the things that I like to learn as much as I possibly can and do things a certain way and whatnot. And I'm like, they're half of that, and yet they're blowing it out of the water, and yet I'm not. And that's where I was like, okay, well, what's the underlying element? What is that one thing, if there is, that allows for some to be just good and some to be great? And how can we really, is it just destiny? Is it just the luck of the cards? Or how can we choose that in some way, shape, or form? And that's what kind of took me down that path.
Who's your friend in the background?
Sorry, that's my dog. He's barking at somebody. I apologize.
I love on this show. We love dogs.
Usually he's quiet, so I apologize about that.
Don't apologize at all. That's why we do these live, and that's why this is life. But so going back to chiropractic school, which is, by the way, I've known a bunch of folks that have gone through it. It ain't an easy road, no matter what you do. It's very, very challenging.
It's one of those things where, like, my curriculum was 6 years jammed into 3. So I always tell people, if you go to college in full time, it's considered 12 hours, but let's say the average is 14-hour credit hours that people go through per semester. Chiropractic school, it's double that minimum. We were taking 28 to 32 credit hours. It's crazy.
Oh my goodness gracious. That's a lot. And then after you get out of chiropractic school, you then get to go find your own practice and create your own business.
Yeah, it was one of those things. I had a big ambition. I'm very ambitious. And it was one of those things I had a big vision and I didn't want to work for somebody. So I even hired a coach 6 months before graduating, just because I wanted to learn and understand, and how can I be the best version of me from a business perspective. I even had a background in business. I had my undergrads in business, but I knew chiropractic was it was just a different business in some way. And it was one of those things that wanting to learn and understand and how to really shine in that element as best as I possibly could. And eventually I figured it out. Eventually I realized it. It got to that point. At least my credentials or my awards show that, at least.
And so now you are a business coach, and you help others get through the blockages. And by the way, did you ever figure it out? What is the difference between making someone being great and being good? And I know I've watched a bunch of videos on Jordan, and he was competitive beyond belief. But what is it exactly? Is it in our DNA?
To some degree, I mean, some people are just destined, like Michael Jordan. He always wanted to go against the best. He never wanted to be with the best. So he would challenge whoever the best was. He wanted to challenge himself to that. I think there's a part of people who have that naturally instilled within them in some way, shape, or form. But that's just from a sports and competitive aspect. Because if you take that into business, which I did it in sports like that too. And then I went into business and I started doing that. Not a great recipe. What ended up happening was, is I started what I through my journeys and my falls and everything else that I went through, I started to realize if you want to be the best version of yourself, just keep competing with your old self. Like where were you last year to now? If you're growing and changing and evolving, thumbs up. If you're not, then that's where you got to really do some real truth seeking or being real with yourself and being, hey, okay, what have I been not committing to, and what are the things I need to? But there's formulas, there's things that you can do to do that. And one thing I do learn is that it's not the destination or end in mind, it's the journey. You hear this often, but it's those little things that we can commit to. That's it. Just commit to little things. It was the little things that all the greats do. I mean, like, was it Stephen Curry? He would go and practice shooting. It was his dribbling skills while his teammates would be going playing PlayStation or whatever. He go and just continue to practice the little minute things. Tiger Woods, he would go after rounds, after the whole, whatever it may be, 18 holes. And if he messed up on a shot, he'd go and take that same swing over and over and hit that thing until he felt really good with it again. Jordan misses a shot. He'd go back and keep shooting that shot until he felt good with it again. It's these little things, little nuances that I believe, in my opinion, at least, from what I've done, my own research and everything, when it comes to a doing perspective, that's what makes the difference. Instead of all these other things, it's just the foundational stuff. We get so lost into the catchy lure. I saw the shiny lures of life of whatever it may be. AI is the new thing now that everybody's jumping down on, and it's this is the new. And I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with it. It's great to utilize. I teach my clients how to to make sure how to use it and to leverage it. But at the same token, it's not like, oh, that's going to be the thing that makes me to go to this level. What's the next thing I need to go chase? That's going to be the next thing in business. Instead, it's what's the small fundamental things that you can do daily that's going to be the biggest thing for you.
So why is it that many of us, I had a conversation with a gentleman just yesterday. He was laid off from his current employer, and he's very talented. And he is starting to get interviews with other companies and other people. And he kept on saying, well, I'm getting these interviews and I keep going on and I don't think I'm qualified for them. And I said, you have to change your mindset that you are qualified for them and that you're the best that you can be and that you deserve to be the best. Was that good advice?
I think it was great advice. I mean, because what you were pointing out is he had, I'm not qualified. Well, that might be a limiting belief because if they didn't think you were qualified, they wouldn't be having an interview with you.
Correct. And it was his third interview. And he
Yeah.
kept on going up the chain. And it was like, I don't know why they keep inviting me back. It's like because you're talented, you silly man.
The biggest thing I see with business owners, and this was me too, this is one of my biggest limiting beliefs, is just lack of self-worth, right? Not having enough belief in oneself. And, some people call that imposter syndrome. That's the new term that is brought up a lot, but it's still the root of it all is limited lack of self-worth, not being shown our worth, not being understand and knowing what our worth really is. I mean, when you really look at it, our worth is no one can tell you the limits of who you are or what the limits of what you can go, like your limits. No one can. We can't tell someone what's the max, we're limitless in many different ways. And that's really our worth. So it really comes down to then is just how do you see it? How do you really think of yourself? What do you believe yourself to become or be? And that's going to really dictate the outcome. And there's a lot of science to support these kind of things where it may be quantum physics or even sometimes neuroscience can back these things up to say, yeah, whatever you see or how you see it, it's what it's going to be. If you believe in yourself, it's going to be that. Now, you can't just say it because if you have a construct or a program and you were growing up and maybe you didn't have support as a kid or emotional support or a variety of different things, or maybe someone was always putting you down, or maybe someone was always nitpicking you grew up with a perfectionist, whatever the scenario, you can see there's a lot of scenarios to this. But if that instilled that low self-worth, it doesn't matter what you're saying to yourself. You got to address that low self-worth and change it from the ground up, which is, I can go into all that, but that's the key to really making that transformation to then breaking that glass ceiling to step more into that limitless.
I learned that years ago when I joined a new company. They had 4 restaurants in the area. I was a restaurant manager, and I was the assistant manager. And while I was being when I, the day I was being introduced to the crew, the other assistant manager is standing next to me, and he goes, "Well," and I said, "Do you like your job? Do you like it here?" And he said, "Yeah, it's a good job, but as long as you don't mind being an assistant manager for the rest of your life." And I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Well, there are only 4 restaurants, and there are 12 assistants, and you're the 13th. And so the chances of you getting your own store anytime soon is you'll never get it. So as long as you don't mind being an assistant manager, you're going to be fine." Oh, it was 3 months, no, 6 months later, the one of the general managers quit, and I was promoted into that position because I deserved it. But we get people in our lives that tell us these kind of crappy things all the time, don't we?
It's there, I wrote a book called the Decoding the Matrix, and long story short, we all have our matrices, and it's like our own little world, and we created these beliefs and these constructs and these rules, and we dictate our own little world. So a lot of times people let our experiences dictate what becomes a reality of things over time. If you let's say you try to pick up the guitar and you try to play for a month and you just don't get it and you drop it and you say forget this, and then you're like, you get the ambition and you're curious again 6 months later, like I'm going to try it again, and you do it for about a month and you're like, I just suck at this, I'm not good at it, and let's say you do it a couple more times, but you don't stick with it. You're just not going to be good at guitar. And then you're going to tell yourself, I'm just not good at guitar. I'm just not. It's not in my cards. I just don't know how to do this. And that's just the end of it. And we allow that experience to dictate our reality when in truth is, you and I both know if we just stick with it long enough, eventually we'll get there. I mean, we may not be a Jimi Hendrix. I mean, but we'll be able to play the guitar.
Exactly. There's a fellow, well, you're a podcaster, he's got 3 whole episodes under his belt. And he's like, "How do I get my first 100 listeners?" And you're laughing because you've been down this road, and it's like his mother and his brother and his cousin were listening, and and he says, "How do I do this? And how long should I go?" And I said, "The only way you lose is if you quit. You got to keep on going and refining your efforts and reviewing what you're doing. At least that's my opinion." Now, when you have somebody that comes to you, Dr. Vic, and says, "I want you to coach me," what do you teach them to do? What kind of conversation do you have with people?
We can use the podcaster as an example. Let's just, if you don't mind, right?
Not a
Because
bit.
he was looking to. I only have 3 people, and this and that, and how do you get to this level, and this and that, and it's like, hold up. First of all, what's your vision? Why do you do a podcast? Why? What's the vehicle? Why podcasting? Like, one of the things all my clients go through when they first work with me is, what's your vision and what's your purpose in this life? Why do you exist? That's a pretty deep question. But the work I do and how I walk them through that is very critical, because I'm all about, now this may sound ironic because I'm a chiropractor, but everything is about alignment. And so it's the thing about, when we have to have a vision, and we have to be clear with our vision. The more clarity we have with our vision, the easier the mind can see it, which means you can attract it into your life and experience it more. You'll be able to recognize it when it comes. Whether then, when we're not clear, we get pulled in many different directions, or we let little short things like, I only have 3 visitors. If we're really focused on the vision, you're not even paying attention to how many people are watching or how many people are listening. I mean, you got to pay attention to the numbers if you're a podcaster. I get it. I do it too. But I don't have an emotional charge to it. So if my list, let's say my all my listening and my podcast drops by 50%, it's like, all right, whatever. I'm just going to go ahead and let's see what kind of content do I feel that I want to share, or maybe I'll throw a reach out and say, hey, well, I'm looking for some topic episodes you guys may be interested. I'll do something like that. But at the end of the day, it's like, I don't let it phase me, because I love podcasting. It aligns with my vision, and sharing information and sharing to individuals reach that I don't would meet people in person, to help them in some way, shape, or form that aligns with my purpose and my vision in life. And so that's what fuels me to do that. So any client I work with, that's the first thing we've got to do, is get clear with that before we do anything else.
When when you say that to people and they give you that deer in the headlight look, it's kind of like, I've never thought about that. We- is it easy for them to come to grips with that, or does it take time and you have to kind of pull it out of them?
It's variables, but a lot of times it takes time. Like, I mean, even just asking the question, it's amazing. Business owners, You ask this one of the hardest questions besides that one. I think the second hardest question to ask is, what do you want? Like, what do you want for your life? What's your, you can tie it into legacy or what you want to leave for a mark in the world, which then comes back to purpose and soul purpose and existence. But it's one of those things, and it's amazing. But then again, when they can't or they're not clear, sometimes you get those people who have, because we'll get the ones that are staring in the head, deer in the headlights kind of look like, I don't know. Oh my God, I never even thought of that. But then I get the other person who's throwing up everything that they've ever listened to from any speaker. Oh, I want to do this and I want to do this with the world. I want to do that. Like chiropractors, we want to save the world immediately when we come out of school. I said the same thing. I had a coach call me out. He would call BS and everything. He'd be like, what's this? And I go and tell him. He'd be like, that's okay. That's what a thousand other chiropractors say. That's what the speaker over here said a couple weekends ago where I was there speaking. He's like, that, it's not, what does it mean to you? Like, I want to hear from your words, the values from you, not what you're recording and just spitting out. Because I was very good at spitting out an answer really quick. But was that answer authentic to me? And so you get some people who are like that and they think they have it all figured out. And then they realize, oh crap, I've been conditioned. I've been taking things from others that I thought was great. Because one of the models in business, if you heard this before, I forgot who the speakers have done it. I've heard it so many times, but it's like, if you want to find follow somebody who has the life of what you want. All right. So if you see them successful and they're speaking this and that, you like whatever that is, follow them, do everything that they do, and you'll supposedly just end up having that. I'm not saying that advice doesn't work, but what ends up happening is you lose yourself in the process because you become a prototype to somebody else. You're not really being you. You're not living. You're not supposed to be. Yes, we may do things that are very similar, but we should have a difference in a little bit of what we do. That's the variance of being human, and that's one of the things I try to pull out of people working with them to get to that point.
That must be hard. I got to tell you,
It is.
Because people come up with all kinds of preconditioned stuff about what my mom said, what my dad said. My dad said I needed to go get a 9 to 5, and I hate my 9 to 5, but I can't quit my 9 to 5 because my wife says I can't quit my 9 to 5, and I've got golden handcuffs that I can't leave it and stuff. But in order to, we don't recognize how short we have to be on this planet and how much what we really should be. The reason that we're here is to do something special. And if we don't follow that, it becomes very difficult. So, I'm convinced. Now, how long have you been a coach?
4.5 years.
I will tell you that 20 years ago, when I first started this business, when I first started doing Positive Talk Radio, coaching was not a thing.
Mm.
People didn't have any idea when you said, I'm a coach. Coach what? Are you a basketball coach or baseball coach? What do you do? And I'm a life coach. Well, what does that mean? And so, but now over time, it's become a very, very important skill that some people have, because you can hold up a mirror to somebody and say, this is what I see, and this is what you're missing. And so I encourage everybody to get a coach.
Yeah, I've been saying that even before I got out, even before I hired a coach. I just was listening to a lot of different chiropractors and successful people, and I saw a theme, and they all had coaches. And then it came after my first coach. I was like, I'll never live life without a coach again, and I haven't. It's just one of those things that because one of the things I tell people all the time, like I'm a chiropractor, I go to a chiropractor, I don't tell my chiropractor what he needs to do. I'll bring things up. I'll say, hey, can you just check this area and let me know what you think? But he's my chiropractor. He's my coach. He's the one that's taking care of my spine. Same thing. I have a buddy who is very well knowledgeable in nutrition. I have 22 years plus of nutrition. I do nutrition coaching. I do all these things, but I don't do any nutrition advice for myself. I will ask my friend saying, hey, here's what I have going on. What do you recommend? What do you think of this? What should I do here? I'm trying to get to this level. What do you think? And whatever he tells me, I follow. He's my coach. And I do the same thing for him, vice versa. And so I have that, I have a business coach and other things. And so it's always because we have blind spots. Once you start to understand the subconscious mind and realizing that it means it's subconscious, you do these things without any awareness. You don't know why. It's just a knee-jerk reaction. And so, but a coach, can see that. They'll see the patterns. They can see what you get constantly into, and they can help you in that. And that's why for me, it's always been, for at least and I always share this story. It's why it's so critical for my life of all the changes, because having that, they catch the blind spots that I can't see.
And those blind spots can be pretty insidious, because we don't even think that they're real.
I mean, it's literally like, think about it this way. We've all taken the same route to go to work or go to a grocery store or go to the gym or whatever that is. How much have you really paid attention to what you saw? How many blue cars did you see on the way? Right? How many, what did what did you notice? The only thing you're going to pay attention to, you may not have noticed anything. And most people are like that because they're an autopilot. That's your subconscious just running things and running the show. And you're just used to the same old experience, going through the same thing, not looking or seeing for something else that's different. And so that's kind of how we live our lives. Not just That's just driving. Let's take that into consideration with business and our health, relationships, all that. We have programs that we're letting run. And if we don't give attention to try to change them or become aware of them, they're just going to continue running. And you'll never, then something happens. Let's say like a marriage ends and like, I don't know how we got to this point. I don't know how we let it get so bad. Well, because it was a conscious program that was running. You weren't aware of it. Or it could be in
That's scary.
business and so forth.
That's scary.
It is. But life doesn't just leave you like that. Life gives you clues. As a chiropractor, I always tell people, we were just talking before about chiropractors and your experience. And I had an individual that I was talking to a couple weeks ago, and it was one of those things where I'm quote walking, can't even move, just barely gets into the office. We get him in, start getting him adjusted and whatnot after we did the exam. And in the report, the next time he came in, I did a report and I was talking to him and I said, okay, so where was the clues that life was letting you know you had a back issue? And he's like, what do you mean? I said, well, there had to be little stuff that showed up that you were just not even paying attention to, but it was there. That you didn't put two and two together. And he would look and he goes, yeah, I would get this little thing, but it came, it was a couple of days, it went away, no biggie. Here it just came here, something, but it was okay. And I said, that was life your body was trying to let you know that there was a problem. It's just, it didn't hit the level of whatever the alarm was for you that would make you go into action to take action on it. So you just kept dismissing, and then here comes the big problem, right? A small problem eventually is going to become a big problem. So, if I said, like, I used a relationship as an example, there's signs in the relationship that you can see early on if you're aware, if you're paying attention, if you're taking a moment. If you're arguing with someone and there's the same arguments keep coming up in different ways, that's a sign that you maybe got to pay attention to that. But subconscious may be like, I'm just caught up, whatever it may be, or relationships are hard. Let's say that's a belief system that relationships are just hard, or men or women are just a certain way, and you have that belief, and you were taught that at an early age. Then you're going to totally miss that and just think it's that subconsciously. Does that kind of make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Because it's just like I was thinking while you were talking about the guy that he saw signs that his back was in trouble, but he didn't follow it, and part of that isn't that partly because of the energetics that we have in our body, that if we're not paying attention to, that they get stuck, and then they start, and bad things can start to happen until something really bad happens, and then you wake up. Does that make any sense to you?
It's like, well, if you go energetics, I have a little background in energy medicine. So, like, stagnant energy in the body, over time is going to create more and more issues because the body's energy, or the body in itself, is designed to move. And energy always needs to stay in motion. So if we're not keeping that flow happening, then bad things will happen down the road. It won't happen initially, but it will happen as it accumulates. It's kind of like dropping, like, if you think about like water and you throw a little mud in there, it may dirty it a little bit, but if it's really, really small, you're not going to notice much. But if you keep going ahead and keep throwing dirt in there, eventually it's going to get dirty and you're going to start to see it. Or another example is like, you take a gallon of water. I'm from Chicago, so the great, Lake Michigan. If I take a gallon of water and dump it into Lake Michigan, no one's going to notice that little slight change in the water elevation. But if we go take, let's say, Lake Erie and dump all that water into Lake Michigan, we're going to see a massive difference in that elevation of the water. So it's that accumulation effect, how it gets to that point.
That's a really wise thing to notice. How do you help people clear their energetics, or can you, or do you?
I do a lot. I have a lot of different tools, but one of the things I help clients with is, like, things are going to come and go. Like, sometimes, and this was my thinking, have a coach, you're going to have no problems, you'll be fine. That was just my belief system. And that was not true whatsoever. I've learned that now. I learned it's like, okay, interesting. But now that I'm on the other side being a coach too, it's like, one of the things I help my clients is understand that you have everything within. I'm here just to guide you through things. So when crap hits the fan and all of a sudden you're stressing out, you got worry or this, let's say money's not coming as well as you like, finances are not hitting your mark, whatever that is. I will teach mindfulness techniques, things like breath work, meditation, different ones, specific ones, depending on what's coming up and what they need. I'll give them not just say do this one, I'll give them a array, because I'm all about, a lot of times coaches are all about, here's the system, just do this and that's it, and it'll work eventually. And they do that in a lot of different realms. Me, I'm like, I'm going to help you find what works for you. We're going to create your recipe, not my recipe of what works for me and just tell you this is what it is. So we use breath work, meditations, different things like that. I also have other things that we can use, different tools to see if there's things that are going on that we need to address. Maybe it's a limiting belief that we can go ahead and try to figure out. Maybe it's other things that we have to do, that maybe just constant patterns are showing up, or things I may not be aware of. There's techniques I know, like the emotion code and other stuff like that, where we can access energies that are like emotions that may be blocking us or holding us back in some way. And I can keep going with tools. I use something called the human design tool to help them understand a little more who they are.
Oh yeah, I've used
So
that.
I love it. It's amazing. So I use a variety of different things. I don't throw everything in there all at once. It's like I handpick little things that I feel that they need at that moment. I'm kind of intuitive a little bit, so I'll feel their energy out and I'll be like, we need to do where you're at, your energy. We need breath work. You just need to reset everything right now. I need you to just get reset. And then if they're like really stressing and they don't want to do that work, I'm like, go take a cold shower and then keep doing that until every day for this amount of time till you get that nervous system reset. And then we can have a discussion and we can start diving in and doing the work to whatever that is. So it's a lot. Some people go like, I have one client was like, wait, did you just tell me to do cold showers? And literally you told me, I won one client, he wouldn't listen to me after a month. I said, listen, I want you to go to the store, go wherever, I don't care. Just get 2-3 bags of ice. I want you to fill up your tub, cold water, and then throw that ice in there. And I told him, I said, I want you to sit in for just a minute and then come out. You're going to spend about $10 at whatever, $6, $8 for ice. And I said, but I just want you to just journal really quick where your feelings are, go in the ice water, come out, and then re-journal it again. And then just see what has changed. And then he was just like, holy cow, I didn't think negative. And it wasn't worrying at the moment. I'm like, yeah, you're basically, your nervous system was like, your body's sitting there going, we're about to die. We need to do survival here. Forget the little petty thing you're worried about, because that means nothing right now. So when you come out of it, you're not going to, your brain's not going to go back to it. Right now, it's trying to survive, but it allows you to reset for a minute. And so it's the power of reset in our nervous system, and utilizing that and using whatever tool that is needed to get there. Because I could say breath work for one person. For me, meditation is it's the one thing that, I use breath work, but meditation is my tool. But for some other person, it could be journaling. Some other person, it could be gratitude practice. But however, we have to reset that energy so we can get you back to neutral. And then once we're there, that's where your power is. That's where your creative power is. That's where your reflection is at. That's where your insights come in, the aha moments, the things that you need to see something. Because sometimes it's just shifting your perspective of what you got going on in life. And so if I can get you that neutral point, now all of a sudden you're responding to life rather than reacting.
I got to tell you, first of all, you're a chiropractor. Excuse me. You're a chiropractor. You did that in 6 years and 3 years. You work hard. You're a coach, and you're an author. And you've got 3 really cool. I haven't read them yet, but I need to, I think. And you've got a free ebook. I want to talk about the free ebook because anybody can go download it right now. If you go to empoweryourreality.com and go to the book section, there's a free ebook. It's called The Power of Visualization. Learn how to manifest anything you desire within your life, career, business, family, relationships, or health. And I got to say, Dr. Vic, there's somebody out there going, oh, visualization. That kind of crap never works. Never works for me, doggone it. So how do you guide people to be able to get through that and to visualize in a proper way?
Yeah, now I've been hearing, at least in the self-help, personal development world, they're calling it the law of assumption now, which is a universal law, which is really just the same thing as visualization. But for those who kind of fight that sometimes, and they're like, you visualize and it just happens. Well, you have to understand there's a neuroscience here that comes in. I use science to try to say, hey, you can say what you like, you can feel a certain way, but here's the science. And that is, your brain cannot tell the difference from what's going on in your physical reality right here, right now, to what you imagine in your mind. Now, you already know this too. You've done this. I've done this. We've all done this unconsciously. Ever worry about something in the future? Ever get nervous about something may happen, or start to create, put situations in your mind, and you're thinking of the future, and all of a sudden you're getting a physiological response at that moment. Your heart rate's going up a little bit, your blood pressure goes up a little bit just from thinking that. Or if you're afraid of sharks, think about being in the ocean and you see a shark, great white, right next to you. How you feeling right now? Right?
I'm peeing my pants is what
Yeah.
I'm doing right now.
Right? So not only can your brain not tell the difference, but it actually creates a physiological response in that moment also. So science has shown that we can't tell the difference. So why not use a tool then that you can visualize the life of what it is you want to create? See the self in the future. There is no such thing as time. Now, people argue that and say, well, yesterday's yesterday, today's today, and tomorrow's tomorrow. That's time. I say, yeah, but in the essence of the mind, there is no time, because I can have you think of something in your past right now, go back, then go to the future, and then think about right here where you are. So the mind can travel in time. So why not see who you want to become in the future? This is why I teach about vision so much. Then visualize that. What's that like? Who are you being? All that stuff. And just hone in on that future self, but see it now. Be grateful for it now. I always tell my clients, be thankful. It's here already, because again, there's no time. So you're here in the moment, right here, creating that in your mind, telling your brain that this is real right here, right now. Even if your brain fights it, because it will. It's one of those things, just get immersed into the moment of it all. Get the feelings, get excited, see it like a movie, and really hone in. And that is one of the ways that I teach my clients, that when you start to step into that energy over time, because we got to slowly change your vibration around, when you go hone in on that visualization, you get crystal clear with it, then all of a sudden those things are going to start to attract into your life, because you can crystal clear see it. The brain says, okay, or you keep putting this in there. This is what you're saying is our reality. Eventually this has to work.
And it does. It's really remarkable how it does work. How things will, even bad, even less than positive experiences are brought to us for a reason, so that we can learn from them and we can become better because of them. Do you believe that?
Oh, absolutely. I tell my clients all the time, because like I have some clients that are they're killing it, and I have some clients that are struggling. And I always tell the one, whenever you go through a struggle, you just need more clarity. And so life is bringing things to you so you can gain your clarity. Once you gain the clarity, then all of a sudden you can attract more of what it is you really desire to want to have. I mean, it's quantum physics. They did a whole study on this called the observer effect. What you see is what you become, or what you see is what you experience. I'm summarizing it like crazy, but it's the same thing in neuroscience. You can't experience anything in your life if you can't imagine it in your mind. So if you can't see it in your mind, you're not going to be able to create it. But if you can create it, and the more clarity you get with it, the easier it is to experience in your life. So the hardships that you go through is just because we have a lack of clarity, and life is bringing to you the things that you need to gain that clarity. Now, if you're listening, you'll make the changes and respond, and so forth. And I think life has a certain way of doing it, to where I say that if you don't change, life's going to make you change. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger of big things, until eventually you make the change.
That's brilliant. That really is brilliant. It's kind of like, if you, I use this as an example occasionally. If you have never had pumpkin pie, never enjoyed it, never been around it, never seen it, okay, now describe it. You can't even imagine it, so you can't even describe what it is until you actually experience it, and then you have a better shot of describing what it is. So that's kind of what you're saying, yes?
Yeah, I mean, you don't know what you want. The only way you know what you want is by knowing what you don't want. I don't know
Ooh,
if that's another way of saying it in a different way,
eh,
but yeah.
there's another bumper sticker for you. The only way you know what you want is to know what you don't want, I don't want any more of that. It's like that woman thing. I don't want any more of that, so I'm going to wait for something else to come along that serves me better. If something doesn't come along to serve me better, that's okay too.
And you think about it, when you say that quote, it's really just clarity.
Yeah.
Because like I thought I wanted that. No, I don't want that. And I realize I don't want that. So now you have a better, clearer picture of what it is you want. And then something's going to come along, and you go, oh, you know what? That was cool. I enjoyed it. There's some things I didn't like about that. Okay, great. Now you got more clarity, and it's just constantly, because life's all about contrast. But it's one of those. It's. I always tell my clients too, and I say this a lot, very often, is like, but it's the perception of how you see it is what it becomes. Because
That's
just like, events are neutral. There's nothing. Life has no meaning. It's only the meaning that you put on it that matters. Who cares what anyone else says? Someone else can say, "Oh, that's horrible. This is this," and everyone can give their opinions because everybody has one. But those opinions don't matter. It's what you believe and how you perceive it, which is going to matter for you. So, I mean, I always I share my story about going when I first came out of school, about a year and a half in the business. Things weren't going well. Student loans were freaking killing me. That was right after 2009, 2000. I came out of business 2010. So that was right after the whole bankrupt collapsing thing and
oh
everything
yeah.
else. So student loans, the banks were like, we're not giving any breaks. There's no program. So I'm like, crap, how am I going to afford that? I'm trying to run a business. I'm trying to get all my numbers to equal out. And I went crazy and just put everything on credit cards to run a business, thinking, I'll figure it out. It's all going to work out. Highly to recommend it. But after one period of point, I came to a point in my life, and it was one of those things where I thought, do I go bankrupt, give myself a chance? I'll hurt myself personally, but I can give my business a chance to at least thrive. Give it that one thing to get rid of some of this debt so it can give me some clearance. Or do I just close the business, go work for someone and pay off my debt, and then eventually 3-4 years down the road, be able to come back around and go ahead and restart this all over? I decided, you know what, I'm just going to I'm going to go bankrupt and see what happens. It took me a year to make this decision, but long story short, one of the things I kept saying to myself was, this is just going to give me the break I need to blow up. It's going to be what I need that's been holding me back, because interest was just piling and piling and piling. And it was. I mean, I always tell people, like, I don't recommend bankruptcy in certain degrees, but at the same token, it was my launching pad for me. And I
Hmm.
think one of the things is there was two reasons. One, what I learned and what created that whole process from a mindset perspective. But the other thing is my perception of looking at that and being a positive for me rather than negative, and
And
not beating myself up over it.
exactly. And you just said something there that I just love, which is sometimes I'll say to somebody, your life is empty and meaningless. And they'll look they'll they'll look at me like, who the hell are you and why would you say such a thing to me? And it's like, no, you don't understand. Every morning you get up, your life is empty and meaningless, which means that you can fill it up with whatever you want, and you can assign whatever meaning you decide to assign to it. And that changes it from empty and meaningless negative to empty and meaningless positive.
Love that. I'm gonna have to borrow that if you don't mind.
You may have it.
But it
Uh,
really is. It really is true. Like, you get to, you wake up every day. I say, like, you wake up every day with an empty cup. How do you want to fill it, right?
exactly.
And it's just. But I like the empty and meaningless. I like the shock and awe. I'm big into shock and awe. It's just like where when I speak share chiropractic, and someone's in the office first day, and I'm sitting there in a consult, I'll look and tell them that chiropractic doesn't treat any condition, illness, symptom, or disease. We don't do any of those things. And then they just go, huh? And I'm like, you're probably wondering why you're here. I'm a little concerned now. I said, great, I got your attention. So I was like, and then I explained what chiropractic is and what we're really doing. And then how does that benefit them, though? And how is it going to help them, even though it's not a direct thing? It's an indirect response that we do work on. And then they go, I've never heard it before. That's pretty interesting. But I got their attention. So that's what I like about it.
Yeah. Well, anytime that you can shock and awe somebody and then get them to think a little bit and get them to think out of the box, that's a really good thing. By the way, we've been talking with Dr. Vic, and go to his website, empoweryourreality.com. Get the free ebook, and he's also got 3 titles, which are Decoding the Matrix. I want to talk about that for a second if we can. And the walk, I like this one too. A Walk in the Dark. We spend our whole lives sometimes doing that. And rediscover your greatness, a guide to creating an inspired and fulfilled life. What got you writing?
I've always wanted to write. I feel like writing is like a gift to the world, because you get a time capsule of me and where I was in my life, and I share a piece of advice or something I've learned and so forth. But really, what inspired me, Wayne Dyer. I mean, I followed a lot of his work, but many others, but him, and just all the books he's written. And I was like, I just want to be able to share. I think one time I heard him say like the books are a way I share, a gift I give to the world. And I was like, man, I like that. That's really. And I started thinking about, well, what does it mean to me? It's the whole time capsule thing. You catch me in a moment. And I have this thing about just wanting to help people. Whether if I write a book and it helps one person, I solve that. I'm not trying to be a best-selling author or any. I don't care about those accolades or titles. I just care about being able to know that I've made an impact in some way, shape, or form. And I feel like books are a great way, another vehicle to get that out there in a concise manner that's kind of, logical, has a sequence to it and so forth.
That's really cool because as a podcaster, you're sitting in your office or you're sitting here and you're all by yourself, or you may have an assistant or you may have a guest, but you don't know who you're impacting. You don't know who's listening and how what you're saying or what your guest is saying is how that's impacting them. And it's really none of our business. It's just our job is to put the best quality product out there that we can and have some meaning to it. And then in my world, I let the universe pick it up and take care of it. The right person will hear it when they're supposed to.
It's so true in so many ways. And they always say what you say does, you may not don't know how much it affects. And then I forgot, though, I'm messing up this whole quote, but it's just powerful what we say. We don't know. Like sometimes I'll say something. This happens in speaking. I'm speaking in a crowd. I'll share a story. I just got inspired to share a story. It came through and I'm like, oh, I got to share the story. I share a story. It's just a story to me. It means absolutely nothing. Somebody will come at the end and go, wow, that story, why I went through that, or something. It was just somehow it moved them. And I'm like, hey, that story was meant for you then. I'm glad I shared it then. And I have no idea. And I'm not going to take credit. I've learned, we all have egos, but it's like, I used to let my ego dictate things. Now I'm like, how could I take credit to that? I had no clue. And I just I just enjoy and go, that's cool. How can I, all right, universe, I want to create more of that. That's cool. I enjoy the energy of that.
Well, and you do the same thing I do, which is that you allow the unit and things come to you all the time, and then it comes from a divine source, and you just kind of channel it through.
That's it. Simple as that.
And that's really cool. That's really cool. I really appreciate you being here. Will you come back and talk to me some more? Although you're a podcaster, and I don't know if I'm, there you go. Now it's like the Michael Jordan thing. I'm competitive. Am I as good as you, or not as good as you, or that kind of thing.
Yeah, if we can have a good conversation, I'm all good. That's how before, my podcast, it was like when I first got into everything, it was like, all right, it was all about just meeting people I couldn't meet in person and have conversations, and I'll just share that. And then my ego got in and said, oh, well, let's see if we can make it like this, listening to other people. Okay, I got to make this podcast grow. I want to get to this level. I want to get certain people on. And now I'm at a point where I'm like, I just want to have good conversations with people who have good energy, and that's all I care about. Because if as long as there's a good conversation and they'll learn something from it, that's what matters at the end of the day.
It's kind of like just breaking down the fourth wall, where you and I are sitting having a cup of coffee or a beer or something, and the audience is sitting in the seat next to us.
Exactly.
And they're benefiting from the conversation that we're having, and they can contribute if they want to, and in any way they choose. So it's really fun, and you are dynamic. I wish your podcast to be the second most successful podcast in the world.
I wonder who's number one.
I got to knock off that Joe Rogan fella first.
Oh man, I'll tell you. I don't know if you ever checked out your ranks on Listen Notes, and I was one day checking it out, looking at where he is. He's like in the top 0.01% or something like that, or 0.0. It's crazy high, and I'm just like, holy cow.
Yeah, but your podcast is doing well, right?
Yeah, and that's all that matters, right? Again, like what we shared earlier today. I don't compare against myself to him. I just compare, how am I growing? How am I making an impact? Or, is people, do I hear from people once in a while saying, hey man, I love that episode, man, that really resonated with me, or thanks, or I'll see a review come through and I'm like, all right, cool. That last episode sparked something for somebody. Great. That's what mattered. That's success. I don't care if it's if that was the only download or if it was 1 million download, it doesn't matter. It's that story that matters.
Exactly. And I agree with you 100%. And you just do it as long as you can. I'm a little older than you, so I'm not going to be able to do it as long as you. But now, when did you start it again?
2018. It was March 31st, 2018.
and 460 some odd episodes up now, and you're doing really well. You've interviewed some great folks, as I have. I've been really fortunate. I've got to interview Neil Donald Walsh several times, and Gary Zukav, and some real heavyweights back in the day, and it's been great fun. And they're remarkable people. Although I got to tell you, you're just as remarkable as any of them.
I appreciate that. Neil Donald Walsh is someone. He's a Michael Jordan in my books. So
Yeah. Yeah, but he is, and he'll tell you, he is ultimately a failed human because he's been married like 3 or 4 times. He was homeless for a period of time. He was fortunate to grab onto conversations with God and to get that channeled through him and stuff. But he'll tell you that because even in those books, he says, "Now, God, why did you pick me? I'm the most imperfect human there is." And he said, because you're a shining example of what an imperfect human can be.
so true, and I love his stuff. I mean, my wife's and our wedding vows were based. We took some of what he has written in his books and we kind of made it our own. But I love his work. But it's if we could come from a place and understand like a lot of our flaws are really what our greatest lessons are, and it's a curriculum to help us really grow, to find that path of fulfillment. It changes life around drastically for ourselves if we can just accept that. And that's something, and I say that so easily, but at the same token, that's very hard for me to accept. I'm getting better as I get older, where I'm like, all right, that's just where I am. But my mindset's always like, nope, I can perfect, I can get better, I can do this. Nope, that's not okay. I can still change things. But my wife's always like, you've gotten better, but you still have work to do, my love. But you're getting better at letting that go.
We all have work to do. We all have work to do. And the one sentence that resonated with me in his books the most, which I'm hopeful that we can incorporate into humanity, which is we are all one. It doesn't matter who we love, what color we are, where we live. None of that matters. We're all here for the same reason, and that's and you're helping people live their lives better through your coaching, through your writing, through your podcast. Congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much. And likewise for you and all the positivity you're creating with what you're doing also.
Well, it's going to take more than two of us. So if you
That's what
want
I say.
if you want to help us out, you can do that. And if you're listening to this now or in the future, you can always get out there and do something nice for somebody, even if it's the only person you talk to all day. Be nice.
It just and the ripple effect from that, but people realize, oh, that doesn't mean much or does much. It does, because that ripple effect changes that person's vibe, and now that person vibe is going to shift, and then that starts to shift the rattle, and then we could slowly start to change things a little over time.
I learned that and I don't think you know this about me, but in between doing the show in 2003 and doing a couple others, I had to quit it and I had to go get a real job. So I drove a bus in Seattle for 12 years. And I learned, and before that, I was in corporate management. So I can talk to vice presidents and people that make a lot of money, and I can talk to a guy who doesn't have a dollar to put in the fare box. And I learned that they're all the same. We're all equal, just experiencing life in a different way.
I love that. It's true. I used to I had to see it that way when it came to like money, because I had a lot of limiting beliefs with money. And I had someone tell me Warren Buffett has money issues just like you do. The only difference is they're different, but there's still money issues. And I was like, nah, come on, he's multi-billionaires. And he's like, here. And then he showed me examples. And he went to Bill Gates and he showed the example. He was just showing like different things they went through, struggles and positives, negatives, and this and that. And he goes, we just all have different things. It doesn't, but at the end of the day, the fears and this and that, they're all the same thing at the end of the day. We all have something that weakens our knees. We all have something that that we may have worry about here or there or something along the lines. But at the end of the day, it's like it's just the flawness of ourselves. But it's also what makes us great, and we can learn to overcome those things and grow from them.
And that's why we're here. And sometimes it takes a coach. Sometimes it takes a book that you can read. Sometimes it's as simple as listening to a podcast. And you're doing it all. And thank you, Dr. Vic, for being here.
No, thanks for having me. This was a blast.
It was, and you'll have to come back. I'm going to make you.
That sounds like a plan. I would love to.
So, anything before we go? Is there anything you'd like to tell our audience?
Everything always works out for your greater good. You just have to trust. The more you don't trust that, and the more you don't trust yourself, the more resistance you're going to experience until you realize it all does.
That is my favorite word. Trust. Because it's going to be fine. And just trust that everything is working out for your highest good. Even on your last day on this planet, and it's time for you to transition and go home. That still can be something that you can trust in and know that things are going to be fine. So thank you so much, sir. You are a gem, and you deserve to be out there, and a lot of people to listen to you.
Thank you, brother. I thank you for letting me be on. This was a blast, like I said earlier.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. I did too. I got to go now, but I got another show to do, but you know how that goes. So anyway, thank you, Dr. Vic. Go to his website, which is empoweryourreality.com, and you can get you can go to the Mindful Experiment podcast. You can get his free ebook and buy his regular books, and they will be, they'll do your soul good. I can guarantee you that. So thank you again. And if you wait right there, I will be right back. Hey, thanks for enjoying this episode all the way to the end. Please give us a like and subscribe to this channel. This has been a production of positivetalkradio.net. Please visit our website, oddly named positivetalkradio.net, for more details about us and our mission, which is to provide great positive programming designed to inspire us all. I'm Kevin McDonald, and I'm proud of these shows, and I truly hope that you'll like them and share them with friends and family. So on behalf of our entire team, remember, be kind to one another, because each other's all we got.